From an early age, we're taught that being normal is the ideal. Follow the rules, fit the mold, avoid standing out. But have you ever stopped to think about what it actually means to be normal? The truth is, this idea isn't as objective as it seems. What's considered normal here might be strange somewhere else or even in another time. So, could normality be nothing more than an illusion built by social conventions? According to the WHO, 1 in 8 people worldwide lives with some form of mental disorder. This raises an important question. If so many people live outside this so-called normal standard, is the problem with them? Or with the standard itself? Many of history's greatest thinkers and creators were labeled crazy. Nikola Tesla, for example, was seen as eccentric and even insane for his ideas. Yet his inventions shaped our modern world. Science also gives us an intriguing insight. Creative brains tend to operate in less structured ways. A 2020 study published in Nature Neuroscience found that people who think outside the box are better at making unexpected connections. Perhaps what we call madness is simply the courage to think beyond the norm. Nietzsche believed that those who stare into the abyss face chaos. But unlike what most people think, chaos isn't necessarily destructive. It can be the starting point for something new. Being normal, on the other hand, might limit us, keeping us from questioning the world and driving change. After all, those who blindly follow the rules never rewrite the game. Normality feels safe, but it's also stagnating. It's like walking a track without ever looking around. Foucault, in his work on madness, argued that it's not an absolute condition, but a label created to enforce boundaries. Anyone who steps beyond those boundaries is deemed mad. But are these limits truly protecting us, or just keeping us trapped? Think about this. What would happen if we stopped obsessing over being normal? Would we discover a more authentic way to live? Nietzsche argued that true freedom only comes when we break away from illusions. And normality is one of the greatest illusions of all. But if letting go of this illusion leads to chaos, does that make it dangerous? This brings us to the central question. What does it really mean to be normal? Are we fooling ourselves by striving to fit into a mold? And if we are, could madness be less of a deviation and more of an ideal? If normality is a line drawn by society, what happens when we dare to cross it? We find ourselves in the space between reason and chaos. This is where humanity's greatest achievements arise, but also where we encounter our deepest fears. Chaos is unsettling because it disrupts our sense of control. Yet, it's within chaos that creativity thrives and transformation begins. Science provides fascinating insights into this dynamic. A 2020 study in Nature Neuroscience revealed that highly creative minds excel at toggling between order and disorder. It's as if their brains act as bridges, capable of exploring the unexpected without losing balance. This explains why visionaries, artists, and inventors are often considered out of touch. But that so-called detachment from reality is precisely where breakthroughs happen. Take figures like Nikola Tesla, who envisioned a world powered by free energy, or Frida Kahlo, who transformed personal pain into timeless art. They didn't just flirt with chaos, they embraced it. But the cost was significant. Tesla died in isolation, and Kahlo endured relentless judgment. So why does chaos frighten us so much? Nietzsche saw chaos not as an enemy, but as a necessary companion for those seeking meaning. He famously said, "One must still have chaos in oneself to be able to give birth to a dancing star." This quote encapsulates the idea that stepping beyond order can liberate us to create something extraordinary. But this leap requires courage, as chaos is unpredictable and often uncomfortable. Here, Nihilism offers a lens to understand this relationship. The philosophy suggests that by accepting life's lack of universal meaning, we gain the freedom to create our own. Yet, this freedom comes with a cost. It leaves us without a map. In the chaos of nihilism, we must either construct our own path or risk losing ourselves. This is where science and philosophy intersect. Modern psychology acknowledges the role of chaos in personal growth. Deep meditative practices and even therapeutic psychedelic experiences demonstrate how temporary disarray can rewire the brain for heightened awareness. It's as if these moments of controlled chaos allow us to reorganize ourselves on a higher level. Living in this balance between reason and chaos isn't easy. Society constantly pulls us back to the safety of normality. Those who step outside the line are often met with rejection. Being labeled insane is a form of control, as Foucault argued. Institutions and social norms use this label to suppress those who challenge the status quo. But what are we losing by avoiding chaos? Are we shutting ourselves off from authenticity and growth? It's uncomfortable to think about, but it's also liberating. Between reason and chaos lies a unique space, and that's where transformation happens. If chaos is where transformation begins, why do we cling so desperately to normality? The answer lies in the heavy burden of trying to conform. Being normal might feel safe, but it's also stifling. It's like wearing a mask. Protective, yes, but it keeps us from truly breathing. A 2018 study from Harvard University revealed something troubling. The constant effort to fit into societal norms is directly linked to high levels of anxiety and depression. When we force ourselves to be normal, we often deny our true selves. The cost isn't just psychological, it's existential. How can we find meaning in life if we're pretending to be someone else? This isn't just about mental health. The philosopher Jean-Paul Sartre argued that existential angst arises when we realize we are free to make our own choices, but instead we conform to what others expect. It's a paradox. We have freedom, yet we fear it. So, we stick to the rules, even if it means suppressing our desires, simply to avoid standing out. Byung-Chul Han, in his book The Burnout Society, offers a sharp observation. We are exhausted, not because we are being exploited, but because we are exploiting ourselves. Striving to be normal feels like a never-ending effort to fit into molds that were never meant for us. In the process, we trade authenticity for acceptance, becoming prisoners of our own making. This tension between conformity and authenticity is at the heart of existentialist and nihilist philosophy. Albert Camus, in The Myth of Sisyphus, compares human existence to a man endlessly pushing a boulder up a hill, only to watch it roll back down. But Camus invites us to embrace this absurdity, to accept the lack of universal meaning and create our own. Yet choosing authenticity often means facing rejection. Society doesn't reward those who break away from the norm because they challenge the system's stability. But is stability worth the cost of individuality? Think of people who dared to defy societal expectations. Rosa Parks, for example, refused to give up her seat on a bus, even knowing the risks. She could have chosen the comfort of normality, but instead, her act of resistance changed history. Such choices are never easy, but they are necessary. If being normal means suppressing who we are, then perhaps madness is the real act of bravery. After all, who decides what's sane? As Nietzsche once said, those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Maybe living authentically means being willing to dance, even if the world can't hear the melody. If being normal feels like a cage, then perhaps true freedom lies in what we call madness. But this isn't about losing control or descending into chaos. It's about breaking free from societal expectations and finding a path that is truly your own. Science offers surprising insights into this idea. Practices that were once dismissed as unconventional, like meditation or the therapeutic use of psychedelics, are now recognized for their potential to reset the mind. Author Michael Pollan, in his book How to Change Your Mind, explains how these altered states can help us perceive life in entirely new ways. It's as though stepping briefly into madness allows us to return with greater clarity. So why does society resist this so strongly? According to Foucault, madness has historically been used as a tool of control. People who acted or thought differently were labeled as insane and pushed to the margins. It was easier to isolate them than to question whether they might see something the rest of us couldn't. Nietzsche also explored this theme. He believed that those who transcend societal norms often face resistance. His concept of the Superman describes an individual who creates their own meaning, free from the rules that constrain others. But this journey requires incredible courage, because stepping away from the norm often means walking a lonely road. We don't have to look far for examples. Rosa Parks, Frida Kahlo, and Nikola Tesla all challenged societal expectations. Parks stood against systemic racism. Kahlo turned personal pain into revolutionary art. And Tesla envisioned a future that others couldn't even imagine. All of them were seen as different, even mad. But their courage reshaped the world. However, liberation comes with challenges. When we let go of societal norms, we also lose the comfort of having our paths laid out for us. Camus referred to this as the leap into the absurd. By accepting that life has no universal meaning, we're left with the daunting task of creating our own. For many, this uncertainty is terrifying, but it can also be empowering. Studies have shown that authenticity is closely linked to happiness and personal fulfillment. Living true to yourself, even if it means being labeled insane, often leads to a deeper sense of purpose. Carl Jung captured this perfectly. We don't become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. Madness in this sense isn't a flaw, it's a force. So maybe madness isn't weakness at all. It's the willingness to question, to disrupt, and to dream. It's the ability to embrace the chaos within us and use it to build something meaningful. But if madness is liberation, why are we still so afraid of it? Could it be that deep down, we know it requires us to abandon the safety of normality? Ultimately, madness isn't about losing yourself. It's about finding yourself. In a world that demands conformity, choosing to be different is an act of rebellion. Perhaps it's time to stop fearing madness and start seeing it as a path to liberation. As Nietzsche said, those who were seen dancing were thought to be insane by those who could not hear the music. Are you ready to hear the music the world doesn't understand? Think about it. Life is too short to live in fear of being yourself. Be bold. Question the rules. Embrace the chaos. In the end, maybe madness is the ideal, because it gives us something normality never can. Freedom. Thank you for watching. If this idea resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. How do you balance reason and chaos in your life? Let's keep this conversation going.